Left face. Present color.
As chair of the Walworth County Dams, Anita Locke, I am so happy to have such a great turnout today. As I said earlier, we have huge challenges facing our country, facing our state, and every one of you is going to help us win in November. You got to vote, you got to volunteer, you got to do everything you can. We have to have a good way. So we're counting on everybody to be here and make it happen. It is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today, Congressman Mark Pocan. Since 2013, Mark has represented the 2nd Congressional District in Washington, D.C. I was just talking to him and asked him, how's that going? I don't think I'm going to tell you what he said. It's got to be tough if you could only imagine. Anyway, before that, he was 14 years Wisconsin Assembly. And before that, what I love, he was a small business owner, which my husband and sons were as well. He was a union member. He's also been the progressive in this state who has led the way in terms of a lot of the programs and legislation that have come out of Washington over the years. So with that, I'd like to welcome Mark to Walworth County. Give him a really warm welcome if you will. It's great to be with you.
So it is really great to see so many people here as we're getting so close to the November election and so much is at stake. To see people here today and doing things between now and November, it's going to make the difference. And you happen to have, in fact, on your trivia, on your card, you might get a few answers in the next couple minutes to some of those trivia questions. Because we have the opportunity this fall to flip the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate. And while you can't help us flip the U.S. Senate this year, but in 2 years, we can make sure Ron Johnson But your member, Brian Style, I used to get that when I said Scott Walker's name. So, wow, I'm going to just keep doing this. So let me do this. I'd like to let you know a little bit about where we're at nationally and what's moving the electorate, because it'll be helpful for you here, not just against Brian Style, but for the governor's race and legislative races and local races. I'll talk a little bit specifically about Congress, and maybe a little bit about Brian, and maybe a little bit about Tom Tiffany as well. I love this, all right. And then let's just talk what we can do about it. So, first of all, we are definitely seeing some things pop up in polling. And I just did 6 town halls in my 6 counties a week ago. And I can tell you what people are kind of talking about the most. There's 4 kind of buckets I see. The first bucket is just when Donald Trump got elected, he said that he was going to lower costs on day 1. Apparently he's having a little hard time counting on that. But what we know is 50% of the people in exit polls said the economy and the cost of living was their number 1 issue. It's how Donald Trump got elected. And then he proceeded to do a few things. The first thing he did was he started throwing around tariffs indiscriminately. Now, I grew up in Kenosha in the first CD. We used to make a lot of cars in Kenosha, American Motors, Renault, Chrysler, and you can use targeted tariffs really wisely. If China is dumping cheap steel in America, we put a tariff on it, and we protect our steel industry and the auto industry and all the other ripple effects. But that's a targeted tariff. Donald Trump is just throwing tariffs around without any rhyme or reason or formula. I like to say it's much like a monkey at the zoo when they throw their dung. You don't really know where it's going to land, but it's going to be messy to clean up, right? That is Donald Trump's tariff theory. Now, Congress has the power of tariffs. He has the power of emergency tariffs, like I said, about steel being dumped. But what he's doing isn't legal, but what is happening is we're paying more for groceries and everyday goods because of it. And when you look at the charts of things going up 15, 20% that people are buying on a regular basis, that's really affecting their bottom line. So people are very aware that the tariffs, especially around groceries and everyday goods, are costing them. The next thing that they're also very aware of is in the big beautiful bill they passed last year, which, by the way, they won't even call the big beautiful bill anymore. They realize how toxic it is. Now that's the bill, just for refreshers. It took away health care from 11 million people between the Affordable Care Act changes, getting rid of the subsidies, and what's going to happen after November for Medicaid. 7 million people alone will lose their health care through Medicaid after November. They're cynical enough to wait till after the election to put that in. But because of it, we're already paying more for health care. I had one employer in Madison told me their rates went up 41% this year because of what happened in that bill. The other thing that went up because of that bill is our utility costs. And Tom Tiffany's trying to somehow blame the PSC in Wisconsin, Public Service Commission. I didn't know they set the rates in California, and Washington, and North Carolina, because everyone is paying more for utility rates, because in that big, beautiful bill, they took away some of the incentives and programs that were part of the Inflation Reduction Act under Joe Biden that we passed when Democrats were in charge. And that affects wind energy and solar and a whole lot of other things. So you're paying now more for healthcare and utilities in addition to groceries and everyday goods. If that wasn't bad enough, you may remember at the State of the Union, the president said the one thing he could brag about was gas prices were kind of low. I'm not sure that's still true. Depending where you're at, they might now be about $1.20 to $1.40. They've been $1.80 to $2. Just so you know, even if the war, which we're going to talk about in a second, stops tomorrow, we will likely have high gas prices through November. That's just the way the market is, but it was completely unnecessary. This is an illegal war that now both the Senate and the House have passed war powers resolutions rebuking what the president's done. But that war, so poorly conceived, is affecting all of us when we are filling our gas at our car tanks. And for people, any farmers in this room, diesel fuel is up even more. Airline fuel is up even more also because of those actions. So think about it. You're paying more for groceries, for everyday goods. You're paying more for healthcare, your utility bill, and now you're paying more for gas. Clearly, this is one of the biggest things that people get, that this is directly because of Donald Trump and the Republicans in Congress that this is happening. So that's the first of those 4 issues. The second one, very related to gas, is this war. And sometimes we call it a war of choice, but I think it's more appropriate to say it's an illegal war. The war powers of going to war go to Congress by the Constitution. I know Donald Trump doesn't like that pesky document, but the reality is he does not have that. If we were about to be attacked, he has the power to go to war. But we were not even close to being attacked. Iran does not have the capacity. In fact, a year ago, I believe they told us when they bombed Iran, they had no ability to hurt us with a nuclear weapon. So this is all made up. It was part regime change, then it kind of changed to nuclear weapons. I'm not sure where Donald Trump is today with his justification, but it's costing us at the gas pumps, but also it's costing us on fertilizer for our farmers. Notice every time I say these issues, rural Wisconsin is hit more hard even than urban Wisconsin. In fact, in Iowa, 3 of the 4 congressional seats are competitive and likely to flip because of all these things that Donald Trump is doing. But this war, we have now had enough Republicans to join Democrats to stand up and pass a war powers resolution, but even if one of those goes through both houses, he will veto it. But the American people will not. They understand what's happening, and that this is Donald Trump got us into something with no plan to get us out, and because of it, we all pay more for gas. And as a guy who used to own a sign shop, I gotta admit, there's very few products that when you're driving down the street, you see when they go up all the time, like gas prices. It's something people see every single day, not just every time they fill their tank, but it's front of mind. So that's the second issue. The third one that comes up a lot is ICE. We were told that ICE was going to go after people who broke the law, violent criminals, I think was the exact word that they said. If you look at the charts, 5% of the people who've been arrested by ICE would be convicted of so-called violent crimes, which, by the way, we were going to go out after anyway. You do that. That's part of the process they do. But 73% had nothing. Like a few had traffic violations, other minor violations, but they lied to us on how they're using ICE. And we've seen how ICE has worked and weaponized against the American people all too often. But what really stands out is during that big, beautiful bill again, they increased ICE's budget sevenfold. Sevenfold. So they have so much money to hire people. I have a podcast I'm going to plug with Liberty and Justice for Some. If you listen to podcasts, it's a good one. I had a guest on who was a whistleblower, used to work at ICE, an attorney who was training newcoming folks that came in to be agents. And he said part of his whistleblowing this year, why he came out, was because they took away 45% of the training that these agents had. Everything around the Constitution and constitutional rights was thrown out. And they're teaching them to do things like go into people's homes that's against their constitutional rights. So this is something that's obviously of great concern to people. We fought hard on funding everything but ICE through the appropriations process. The Republicans did just come and do their reconciliation too, which they can do with a simple majority to get the final bit over, but they already had a sevenfold increase. but people really get it. And they're losing on immigration and polling, something Republicans never used to. They're losing on the economy, something Republicans never used to. The fourth issue, and in many ways this may be one that touches people who aren't maybe more progressive leaning or even more moderate, but it's the issue of corruption. So let me just give you a little bit of the Trump crime family corruption to think about. This year, in the first quarter of the year, Donald Trump made 3,700 stock trades. In some cases, right before a company got a major federal contract. Now, there's pending legislation to make sure that members of Congress can't buy stock, and I'm on every bill, because we do get inside information. Right? I have a company, and I have a lot of biotech companies that are finding cures for diseases. If they're about to get approved by Medicare and I'm helping them to do that, guess what? They're about to make a lot of money. And that's called inside information, and we don't allow people to act on that. So members of Congress shouldn't. A president not only gets inside information, he creates inside information by the nature of his job. So 3,700 stock trades. We never saw another president, Democrat or Republican, do that. I think you've all heard about the arch he wants to dedicate. So it's so big that we're being told there may be air traffic pattern issues and problems with it. But when asked by a reporter, they said, well, what is this a memorial to? And his response was, me. Okay, but we're doing everything we can. In fact, the committee that has jurisdiction over this had the Secretary of the Interior before them. And he said, oh, there's no location pick. This isn't going anywhere. The place that Donald Trump keeps telling you it's going to happen, all the equipment's already there. So this is another ego project for him, much like the ballroom. So you may remember, we woke up one day to find out that the east wing of the Capitol is tore down, and suddenly they're going to do this other project. It was going to be $200 million of free money, then $400 million of free money, and now we found out $1 billion of our money. And I think we're going to be able to stop that $1 billion, but we're still working through that with the Senate. But some Senate Republicans have been helpful. We also know about the slush fund, that now at least the fund part is dead, the $1.776 billion that Donald Trump negotiated with himself. But they're saying they're going to honor that you can't go after Donald Trump or his family for past, present, or future violations. Again, which is so crazy. Look, on that fund, had we not got rid of it, we did introduce some legislation around that called Stop the Grift Act, which would have taxed at 100% any proceeds given out, so that we would have got every dime back in. We put that out there, and a lot of other efforts to try to stop it, but I think that might be one that even, again, the Senate Republicans have worked with us enough to stop. But that's the scenario we're looking at for this fall. So let me fast forward to what that means in the first CD. Your member of Congress, Brian Stile, has voted for every single thing that Donald Trump has asked for. And I know he's gone as hard as he could to not take a position on any issue ever, right? That's kind of Brian's style. I describe him as, he's like flavorless Jell-O on a plate. He kind of tastes like whatever he's next to, right? But he's starting to get some flavor these days, because I think he thinks that Ron Johnson's not going to run in 2 years, and he wants to run for the U.S. Senate. So he's got $6 million in an account. What he also should be aware, besides putting more money into his account from people who want things from committees of jurisdiction he's on, which is where he's raising a lot of this money, is the numbers in the 1st district are as good as any district that we are going to pick up this fall. So I know you have a primary, and it's going to be a spirited primary, and you all get active, but coming out of that primary, we're going to have one candidate to put up against Brian Stile. And the numbers of the district are strong enough, as strong as any. Right now, there's a pollster named Wasserman, and he says that based on not some of the high turnout specials, but the bigger elections like New Jersey and Virginia, that he says Democrats are going to pick up 8 to 9%, which means he said a floor of 23 seats in the House. A floor, the minimum is that. In Wisconsin, 1 and 3 are the two most competitive in our state, and both fall in the numbers that could very likely flip this November. So can you help us make sure we flip that seat? And don't forget, whatever we do in helping on the Assembly and Senate races in the district, the local county races, the congressional race are going to help us on all of our state stuff. We have a chance, for the first time in a long time, to pick up a majority in the Assembly and the state Senate. We need 5 seats in the Assembly, 2 in the Senate. It is very doable with the fairer maps that we got 2 years ago. So we need to make sure that we're supporting all those candidates the very best we can, because if we get the Assembly and the Senate and we have to hold the governor's office and all the other statewide offices, we will have a, check your trivia, a trifecta. I'm not giving away too many answers, sorry Anita, but they're all in here. We could have a chance to really put an end to the damage that Scott Walker did, to any of the damage that Robin Voss and the other Republicans did. And we see it right now. The fact that property tax bills were so high in Wisconsin is only due to what the Republicans did and how we fund education. And our Democrats were fighting hard to try to fix that. And we can fix that with the trifecta going into the next legislature. So, absolutely. So we've got a lot happening in Wisconsin this November. I'll tell you what gets me up every day, and I hope you'll use this because I think it's helpful, is the mantra that I repeat is, today is one less day that Donald Trump is president, right? We know that's right. And when we flip the House of Representatives, and hopefully the Senate as well, and there's good potential, we now ensure no bad legislation can go through Congress whatsoever.
Yeah.
We now have the ability to sue as Congress actions that the president does, which is a much more powerful lawsuit than a lot that have been out there. And we've been having good success in stopping the president already with lawsuits, but we'll have the power of Congress behind those. And we have the power of oversight in our committees, because we'll have the gavels, and we have the power of subpoenas that they just weaponized against Bill and Hillary Clinton. So we're going to use the full new potential they've given us on subpoenas, and we can finally have that accountability and hold Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and Robert Kennedy Jr. and every other clown that comes out of that car. Now we can have that real oversight. So. I literally have to leave right now to get to the airport to make sure I can fly to Washington tonight. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for being here today. This is a great turnout. And if we keep this level of energy and enthusiasm going towards November, and we pick up those assembly seats and the Senate seats and the congressional seat, and we hold the governor's race and all the other state races and pick up the last one that we don't have yet, the treasurer's office, we will be in a really great place, and right now the stars are aligning for us. I look forward to coming back down to the first. You're going to see me probably a couple times. I hope you don't mind. I'll wear something different next time. We're going to get it done. Thanks so much for having me today. Thank you for everything.
Thank you so much. Safe travels. Mark was talking about candidates, and I'm going to just take a minute. We have wonderful candidates this year. We're working towards a primary, obviously, to get down to our slate. But I want to say in Walworth County, very, very happy we have a candidate in every assembly race and every Senate race in this county. And that is a big deal. We are going to have momentum with it. I also want to thank every candidate. You know, I help recruit, I help get them going. Here's what you should do for your committee, and then you're on your own, right? It is, we'll have it open again on the break. The idea for today is to showcase our candidates, let you know who they are, get to know them a little bit, think about who you're going to support, maybe work on their campaigns and volunteer. They always need help. And just have a good day this afternoon listening to our candidates. So what we've done is set up a forum format. This was our elections chair idea. And what we want to do is give all of our candidates a chance to at least get what they stand for and answer a few questions. We have 17 candidates today, so we're going to stay on target for time. We have a couple candidates that are sliding in at the end of the day. They're at the Pride Parade, our governor candidates, but please listen, please get to know your candidates and thank them for taking all this time out of their busy schedules to be here with us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sue Chandler. Sue has many titles. I asked her which one she wanted me to use. But she's vice chair of the county. She's the head of the elections committee as well, and then she's also, as most of you know, chair of our CD1. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sue.
We're going to start with CD.
Testing, okay. So Anita just took all my whole intro. Okay, we're gonna jump right into this thing, okay? So what we've done is sent 2 questions to each candidate for each of these sections of forums. And they will have 1 minute for a personal introduction to you, and then a minute, 90 seconds to answer the question, and then we'll have another minute at the end for each one to have a wrap up. So my cohort here, Suzanne Arnold, board member and chair of IT, is going to present the questions. We're going, I'm sorry for the feedback, I'm trying to figure this out. We're going to, for expediency, it's going to go alphabetical order. There you go. So we're going to start with, yeah, no, they have the mic. Okay. So we start with Mitchell.
Hello. All right. Thank you all for coming out. Truly appreciate you all being here. I'll be honest and tell you that none of us would be successful here without all of you. So thank you very much. A little bit about me. I was born and raised here in Wisconsin. I grew up in a small rural community. I had working class folks. My dad built a small roofing business from the ground up. My mom worked in the foundry. They taught me the values of hard work and perseverance. I went to public schools. I was the first in my family to graduate from college and earned a degree in nursing. I spent most of my career working in the emergency room, with the last 11 years being at the VA. I've been a union member at every single organized facility I've ever worked at, including UPS when I was in college. I worked in my 3 jobs to try and make ends meet. I unloaded trucks from 4 o'clock in the morning until 8 so I could get to class on time. But we're going to be able to hold Brian Stile accountable this election cycle. We're going to hold him accountable for his votes on the big ugly bill. We're going to hold him accountable for supporting Trump's policies. But we're also going to give people reasons to come out and vote for us. So thank you for being here.
That's Mitchell Berman.
We
we doing first CD or all
We'll
CD?
do first and then
We'll do first and then Andy.
All right. PrEP saves lives. Wow, that's a lot of feedback. PrEP saves lives. Abortion is healthcare, and our shared green spaces make our community a better place to live, work, and vote. My name is Peter Burgelis. I grew up with 2 older sisters and a single mom. I'm the son and grandson of immigrants who came to America and fought for everything that they earned. I've had a lot of jobs in my career. As an elected in the last 4 years, I challenged a 22-year incumbent because they didn't represent or reflect my values. They represented me in City Hall, but they didn't represent my values. That really stung. When elections don't go your way, you can post something fun on social media, encourage your friends to vote a different way next time, or you put your boots on and ran. I ran and I unseated a 22-year incumbent by 28 points. I want the opportunity to do the exact same thing to Brian Style in November. Thank you all very much. Peter Burgelis.
Yeah, it was fast. So my name is Lorenzo Santos. I served on active duty. I drove warships on the USS Oscar Austin, traveled the world. I became an emergency manager for Racine County. And Donald Trump decided he wanted to do two things. He wanted to destroy FEMA, which affected the local emergency management apparatus. It destroyed public health funding, which I work with, and it made it harder for local government to do what they do best. So I decided, along with that, in this forever war in Iran, that I needed to go from starting at the local level to making sure that we have someone in Congress that can actually hold Donald Trump and Brian Style accountable. That's me, that's why I'm running. We have an opportunity here to beat Brian Style in November, and a big portion of that is gonna come from Walworth County. So let's do this together. Thank you very much.
Hi there, everybody. Hey, how's that? These on-off buttons. Hi, my name is Andy Beck, and I'm the odd duck up here. I'm running for Congress in the 5th Congressional District. Thank you. So, out of this great county, I get East Troy. So I want to represent the folks of East Troy during this election, the great Democrats that we have in this room right now. It takes all of us to win these elections. I'm a product of Union family. I am a product of Milwaukee Public Schools, and I am out to serve everybody in the district and really everybody in the country if I get elected. I'm going to get Scott Fitzgerald. I'm not sure if anybody's heard of him, but he's just as bad as Style. So that just kind of tells a little bit more about what I'm going up against. And it's a red district. I'm -11 down Republican-wise. So I really appreciate all your support, and thank you very much.
Okay, so each candidate will get 2 questions. The first question, and you'll get 1.5 minutes to answer. The Trump administration has created an enormous number of problems for the well-being of the United States and its friends around the world, which the current Republican Congress has refused to challenge. What are 3 of the most important issues you would give priority to if elected? And we'll start with B for Berman.
We want to rotate. You go first and then come back.
Sounds good to me. My name's Peter Burgelis. 3 issues: accountability, affordability, and basic human rights. We heard from Congressman Pocan about the assault on our pocketbooks. That's a direct result from Trump's policies that Brian Style supports. Democrats will come together in January and repeal the tariffs, repeal anything that has been costing our pocketbooks more. On accountability, when I talk to Democrats at doors, I hear that Democrats want blood. They want someone to fight for our ideals, to fight for our democracy, to hold Republicans accountable. Republicans have been playing dirty for years. Democrats are always the nice guys. If it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, and it's good for Democrats too. For basic human rights, we've seen the global stage get torn apart. America was a leader for global peace. As an elected, my very first resolution was a resolution statement in support of the people of Ukraine and recognizing what people in our community are doing to support the freedom fighters in Ukraine. That turning our backs on Ukraine or on NATO is going to destabilize Europe and destabilize our global economy, our global power of peace far more than anyone can imagine today.
Okay, I'll go. All right. Yes. All right, first of all, we need to make sure that we're focusing on affordability. Americans are hurting, Wisconsinites are hurting. That is Donald Trump and Brian Stile are directly responsible for that. We need to make sure we have a member of Congress that is willing to fight for our district, that is willing to stand up for us, that is willing to stand up for our farmers. Donald Trump came to Chippewa Falls and decided that he was going to have a sign behind him that said he's standing up for farmers. Meanwhile, he is the architect of this tariff war that we're fighting with other countries, and he is making sure it is harder for farmers to feed America. We need a member of Congress that is going to stand up for us. That's number one. Number two, universal health care. We cannot have the richest country in the entire world have people that have anxiety about whether or not they can walk into a hospital and receive life-saving care. We can afford it. We have long since been able to afford it. We need to make sure we do that. We also need to make sure that we are restoring the ability for America to be a leader. America is a world power. We are a world leader. Our leadership is indefensible. Excuse me. No. It is invaluable. It is invaluable. I'm trying to talk a little fast with this timer. It's about to ring in 2 seconds. It is invaluable and it is indispensable. And we need to make sure that we restore it. And I will make sure as a member of Congress, that's what I do.
The first thing we need to address, again, is putting money in people's pockets. We need to end Trump's illegal tariffs. I'm a union guy. I am happy to say that I'm also endorsed by UAW, and I believe in supporting organized labor and making sure that people who are building the table have a seat at it. So I'm all for making sure that we get the PRO Act passed and we allow people to fight for prevailing wages. The other thing is healthcare. I'm obviously an emergency room nurse. This is very close to my heart, and I'll tell you, I got sick of working in the ER and having patients confide in me that they can't afford their medication. Bankruptcy in this country, the #1 cause is medical debt. So we need to stop the hemorrhaging. We need to restore the ACA subsidies immediately to make healthcare more affordable. We need to break up the vertical integration of the healthcare system and bust up the monopolies. The idea that United Health, the insurance company, employs more physicians than any other entity in this country is a problem. And lastly, we need to end the corruption in Washington. Brian Stile put out a stock trading ban, just so you know that's not what it does. He actually was the #4 member of Congress last year for beating the market. He beat the market by nearly 63%. So we need to end the corruption in Washington and make sure we restore some accountability.
I think this is on. Yep, there we go. So I'm a little bit different here. My first goal is to save our democracy. Ever since Trump got into this administration, there has been an assault on our democracy through different laws, different executive orders, having the judiciary strip the civil rights amendment down to bare bones, and really looking at our Supreme Court, it's just a shambles of what it should be. So we really need to take a look at our democracy and save that before we don't have anything to vote for. Who knows what's going to happen in November? The second thing is healthcare. Like many of my colleagues up here, healthcare is very important. We need to make it affordable, accessible, and really I'd like to point out mental health. Nobody mentioned anything about that, but I think if we concentrate on mental health, that's going to solve a lot of our societal woes. Also looking at costs, really trying to bring costs in line, as Mark mentioned before, utility costs, costs of gasoline, costs of groceries, cost of diesel fuel and fertilizer for farmers. These are a lot of costs that we can't put up with, and I see it 2-3 times a week driving around the district for gas prices. So that's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Moving on to question number 2. Medicaid is not only a lifesaver for most of our vulnerable population, but it also creates millions of jobs across the country, either directly or indirectly. The One Big Beautiful Bill would make significant cuts to Medicaid and other safety net benefits. Many legislators look to roll back some of these cuts almost as soon as the bill was signed. What ideas do you have to be able to successfully roll back these cuts?
I'm going to try and talk a little slower this time. We have got to tear up the whole damn big beautiful bill. We have got to repeal it as soon as we have the votes to do it. That's number one. So when we have the numbers, what I tell folks that are asking about this election is I say, November 3rd, Donald Trump becomes a lame duck president. And we will have a Congress and we will have a Senate that can deal with everything he's trying to do, these nonsense policies. We can make sure that we have the votes. Because a lot of what we wanted to do, Democrats, we know what we want to do. We want to stand up for people's health care. We want to make sure they have Medicare, Medicaid, fully funded public health programs. We haven't had the votes in Congress to do it. So this election is about making sure that we get out there. We ensure that we have the votes, because the policy, it's not a question about what Democrats believe in. It's a question of whether or not we've had the votes to be able to make it happen. So we, first and foremost, we will repeal this big ugly lie. We will make sure that we put a real healthcare bill in its place. We will make sure that we ensure that the Obamacare ACA subsidies are returned, and we have common sense healthcare that is supporting everyday Americans. The punchline here is Congress benefits, these Republicans benefit from the exact same healthcare that they want to take away from us. And also the military benefits from the same kind of healthcare that they don't want anyone else to have. And as a veteran, I think that everyone should have a benefit of that kind of healthcare.
We need to fully fund Medicaid. What bothers me is that we have money for everything else in this country except for taking care of people. We have money for a directionless war in Iran, we have money for an arch in Washington, we have money for a ballroom, but we don't have money to protect those in our communities that are most vulnerable. So this is very close to my heart and personal for me. My mother had some medical issues in her 40s and required a procedure. Her insurance company at the time denied it. And because of that, she was later diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer at 49 years old. That same insurance company that denied her care began increasing her premiums where they couldn't afford it. And she found herself on Medicaid. Medicaid afforded my mom an additional 8 years of life. It allowed her to dance with me at my wedding and hold my first grandchild. So when I see the cuts that are being made in Medicaid, I'm looking at this through the lens of the people that this is affecting. And knowing full well, I've worked in the emergency room when people were underinsured and uninsured, and this is gonna cost people their lives. So we need to make sure that we fully fund Medicaid and we make sure that people can get the health care that they need.
Yeah, Medicaid supports so many different people and so many different facilities. So it supports our children, supports our seniors, it supports veterans, it supports working families, and it supports so many people you would never understand from a healthcare standpoint. Also, it supports our hospitals, healthcare workers, clinics. When they started making these cuts, which we haven't really felt the totality of it until after this November, we started seeing hospitals start closing down. I think we have one hospital up in the 3rd Congressional District that's probably going to close because they're not going to have the funds through Medicare to fund the clinic or hospital anymore. So a lot of these people are going to have to travel hour to 2 hours to 3 hours just to get the proper medical care. So we really need to come back, get rid of these funding lapses, and really fully fund Medicare, ACA, and Medicaid, so we have good, healthy people throughout the United States. Thank you.
These Medicaid cuts disproportionately hurt rural hospitals and rural patients. Nobody's talking about that yet. This rollback will take 30,000 rural Wisconsinites off of their health insurance. It will cost $607 million of revenue to hospitals. It'll create a $140 million budget gap that the state will have to step in and pay for. And the next candidates that you meet on stage are going to have to come find that $140 million in our next state budget. These are insufferable cuts to human beings. It goes to show just how inhumane Republicans are. In Wisconsin, we care about our neighbors. We care about people who need a hand up, not a hand out. We help each other. These are Wisconsin values that Brian Stile has forgotten. These are Wisconsin values that Republicans from our state have forgotten. We will flip this seat. We will flip Congress, and we will bring Wisconsin values back to Washington, D.C. This election is far too important to lose. Look at that here.
Okay, and now we're going to give each candidate a minute for a closing statement, and we're going to start with Andy Beck.
Hey, here I go. First of all, thank you again for having me here. This is a great crowd. I've been to many of these across the 5th Congressional District, and this seems like the biggest crowd, so applause out to yourself. In the 5th Congressional District, we're looking at trying to change things up. My district is a -11, so it's going to be a much tougher district to compete in. And looking at what WISDMs and DCCC are going to be putting out, it's not going to be a whole lot. So really looking for the grassroots support of folks in Walworth County and then all my counties in the 5th Congressional District. And I hope I can get in Congress and help everybody in the whole United States out with this terrible administration that we have. Thank you very much, and change is going to be good for you. Thank you.
That was also a great time. This election, everyone knows that this election in the 1st Congressional District against Brian Stile is far too important to lose. We all know that it will not be easy to beat an incumbent Republican in an R+2 district. But if there's ever a time to do it, now is the time. Chris Taylor took the 1st Congressional District by 15 points. We have to continue and carry that momentum with us to November. I have a history of beating incumbents. I will do the exact same thing in November as your next congressman.
This race is about humanity. This race is about ensuring that we're supported everyday Wisconsinites. Making sure that we are an America that is actually taking care of one another, of our community, not only the 1%. And we have an opportunity to do that against Brian Stile. We have an opportunity to win this seat. They are scared. They know that all across the country, Americans are fighting back. It will be no different in the 1st District. And when we talk about history, I have a history in this district. I've been here. I've been having the fights. I've been the chair of the Young Democrats, where we need to be listening to our younger voters and getting them involved in this process, because this is the future that they will have to bring with. So we need to get our younger voters involved, because with their help, we're going to win this race. Thank you very much.
As I've been traveling the district, I hear one thing repeatedly. People understand that the system is broken. They look at Brian Stile and they see someone who is not reflective of their values and what they stand for. I've chosen to build a life here in this district. I built my forever home on the west side of the I in rural Racine County. My children go to public school here. I work in a community hospital that cares for people in our community. I have skin in the game. When I go to Washington, I will be legislating from a place of understanding and empathy, because I've experienced a lot of the things that we've experienced here in this room. We have built something from nothing. We've built a foundation of supporters and people who have contributed to our campaign. We've raised over $500,000. We have over 10,000 individual contributions to our campaign. Folks just like you who see something and see a need for change. So I appreciate you joining our team and your support, and I would appreciate your vote in August. Thanks so much.
She's our regional field operative, whatever, I'm not sure, but she's our gal from West Dems. And also thank all the people who brought the lovely desserts. It's kind of a trademark of the Walworth County Republican Democratic Party. Just checking to see if you're listening.
And now we have our senators.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, but I'll let you each have your minute to introduce yourselves.
Sure. Good afternoon, I'm Mark Spreitzer. I'm the current state senator for the 15th district and running for re-election. So many of you are not in my district, but if you're in the city of Whitewater or the surrounding towns, town of Whitewater, town of Richmond, town of Cold Spring up in Jefferson County, then you are. I've been in the legislature for 12 years, 8 in the Assembly and now 4 in the Senate, and been in the minority that entire time. I'm running for re-election because I think this is finally the chance that we're going to get to win the majority and repeal a lot of the Walker era policies that have been hurting us, and actually put in place proactive policies with the help of additional Democratic colleagues, including one of the folks up here on stage with me and a couple other seats we can win around the state. We are only 2 seats short of the majority, and so I want to win the majority, serve in the majority, and actually tackle the problems that we're facing, and we'll talk more about that in the next questions.
Good afternoon.
afternoon, everyone. My name is Adam Duda. I'm running for Senate District 11. Wow, this is a lot of people.
You're good.
So I am a naturalized citizen. I've gone through undergrad. I've gotten a master's degree, and I've gone through law school. So I'm a very persistent person, and I want to be a persistent person for you guys. And represent you as a public servant. So in my campaign, I'm going to focus on schools and farmers, escalating energy and fuel costs, and the distrust between citizens and government. And my primary issues will be the educational system, making sure the public schools are properly funded, that shared revenue money goes to public schools. And another issue that we'll work towards is elderly, and make sure that they're taken care of with their property taxes, that they don't rise. So I intend to do that, and thank you.
Okay. My father was a union carpenter, and basically he taught me to always. Oh, I just need Joel. My father was a union carpenter, and he taught me to really always start what I begin and to finish what I start. It kind of stuck with me, and basically I try to get things done. I was also a Boy Scout when I was a youth. I spent a lot of time, I still remember the motto, be prepared. Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, truthful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And it's become a big part of my life. I basically want to be your senator. I want to get things done for you, and also make sure this district is served. Steve Nass did not do a good job, and I want to replace him. Thank you.
Okay, question number one. When we are able to flip the Senate, what are your top 3 priorities to get done when elected?
So for me, the top 3 priorities are making sure we use the unallocated surplus funds to properly fund our public schools, meaning that it's the 21st century. We need to make sure our students are competitive, because they're the future of our economy. And that will allow Wisconsin to have higher national and global competitiveness. So next, we should address the skyrocketing healthcare insurance costs. Make sure that healthcare is not a burden, but a benefit for families, and cap prescription costs. And the other priority would be address the mistrust and division between government and citizens, because the government is supposed to serve the people and not the other way around. Because as a public or a state senator, I would be a public servant rather than a politician, in my view. So by prioritizing these things, I would believe that it would provide a sound foundation for the future. Thank you.
First thing I would like to do is work on this idea of what Citizens United has done with dark money in our political system. There are a couple of things out there that states can do. Montana has a plan. They have the election transparency initiative that they're going to vote on. Hawaii has enacted a prohibition of corporations, because they're chartered by the state, to prevent them from giving dark money. That will go into effect next year. So there's a lot of things the state can do to try to stop the dark money coming into our political system. I think it's the cause of most of our problems, and we have to address that somehow. The second thing I would like to do is increase funding for public schools and the university. When I went to college, my tuition was $110. The state covered 64% of the cost of my education. It is now down to 19%. And again, this is causing a great deal of problems. The third issue would be our park systems. We had this bipartisan thing 40 years ago called the Knowles Nelson Stewardship Fund, which bought land for all of the parks, the 92 parks we have in this state. This basic funding will stop in June because the Republicans in the state Senate did not fund it. So there will be no money coming in to buy new land. So those are my three issues. Thank you.
My three issues are addressing the cost of living, investing in key priorities, and regulating AI and data centers. So on the cost of living, we know that too many people are hurting. State government can't do a whole lot about the price of groceries, but we can do a lot about the price of childcare, housing, healthcare. And so working on those things and also reducing the property tax burden, ending that endless referendum cycle, increasing the homestead tax credit for seniors and others on fixed incomes. In terms of investing in our key priorities, the next budget is going to be absolutely crucial. We need to fund our schools, actually increase the special education reimbursement rate to at least 60% and guarantee that percentage rate going forward, change some of the ways we fund local government, especially fire and EMS service that is really struggling, restore the Nelson Stewardship Program, which is going to expire in June if we don't come back and do something about it, and really rebuild the DNR that has been dismantled. And on AI and data centers, right now our local communities are essentially on their own trying to deal with big tech companies. I have 4 data center proposals in my district right now, and we've got town governments and in one case a city government trying to navigate this and protect people. We need a statewide approach, and we need to make sure that it doesn't undermine our climate goals by building more fossil fuel plants.
Okay. Question number 2. Many Wisconsinites can no longer afford their health care insurance. What proposals do you have to make health care more affordable and accessible to protect the health of all Wisconsinites?
I think it goes back to what I said about money in politics. A lot of our insurance companies actually run with a profit, and they make a profit off of our health. And I think we have to examine that a little bit. Also going back to our education system, we need to make sure that doctors can get an education without going into debt. And I think it's important that we support those. There's not a lot of general practitioners around, especially in rural areas, so we have to do that. I lived in Blanchardville. We had our own community clinic, which the community set up, which was really advantageous to us that lived in that community. We should examine some of those kinds of issues. Thank you.
So for my priority would be expanding Badger Care so that we accept federal Medicaid expansion and that we do accept federal funds. So it would help with better health care for everybody. And we also should make sure to protect elders and make sure that the costs for them are capped so that they're not concerned about whether they can pay for their food or property taxes. So it's important to respect the elders. Yeah.
Unfortunately, the answer to this question was a lot easier a year ago before Congress passed the big ugly bill. And so I hope we have partners in Congress to help repeal that. Because they took away the subsidies for the Affordable Care Act, and they made the Badger Care expansion that I have long supported much harder to do, because instead of getting more money from the federal government, we would get penalized by the federal government if we do the expansion. So we've got to get creative. We're working through a lot of that. We need some sort of public option, whether that is through Badger Care or through our state employee health system or some other way of doing that so that people aren't beholden to the insurance companies. So we are working through the best way to do that in light of the new federal rules, but we need that one way or the other, and we need to still address that expansion population, and I think we can do that as well through a very affordable buy-in public option. It just isn't quite as nice as it would have been before Congress made that harder. We also need to crack down on the price of prescription drugs, capping the price of things like insulin and inhalers, and then also limiting how much drug companies can jack up the costs of drugs that they've already produced without having some justification for it. Research is one thing, but when you've already made it and then you raise the price, that's just price gouging and it needs to stop.
Okay, now we'd like a closing statement. You have 1 minute. We'll start with Steve Dolder.
In 2018, Steve Nass ran unopposed, and I decided in 2022 that he needed an opponent, so I jumped in the race. And I think it's very important. I'm glad to see we have so many candidates running, and it makes such a difference. I really appreciate the fact that we have, well, actually the choice is 5 candidates running for District 11, 3 Republicans and 2 Dems. And I think this is very important. I think we want to look, and I want to thank you all for all you do to make the Democratic Party functional, especially in Walworth County here. I think you got to think about voting is like driving. You put it in D and you go forward.
So, I've mentioned that I'm persistent. I'm a naturalized citizen. I have a bachelor's degree, master's degree, law degree. But what I want to do is serve you and make sure that I'm persistent for you. So that's why I'm running for office. I am somebody who, rather than being a politician, I'm interested in being a public servant and represent your interests before everybody. So, yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Again, I'm Mark Spreitzer. I'm the current state senator for the 15th district, and I'm in leadership as the Senate Democratic Caucus Chair and also the LGBTQ+ Caucus Chair. I want to continue those leadership roles and serve with a growing majority. So if you're in my part of the district, please come and introduce yourself to me afterwards. But my goal is to come back with more like-minded colleagues, including one of these gentlemen, but we've got seats to win around the state. I don't just want Whitewater to be the little blue beacon in Walworth County. I want the whole county to be blue, and I want the whole state to be blue. That's what we're working on. I gotta make sure I get reelected, but I'm also gonna be traveling the state to make sure that Jeff Smith and Eau Claire gets reelected, and then we pick up the 2 seats we need to win the majority. And so if you're in that fight with me, come and talk to me, and we'll figure out how to get you involved. Thank you.
We will start with an opening statement of 1 minute for each candidate. And we'll start with Brianne Brown.
Hi, I'm State Rep Brianne Brown, and I represent Whitewater, Milton, Edgerton, East Janesville, and everything in between. And you all know me, and most of you grew me from Walworth County, and I'm one of the first Democrats in Walworth County in something like 20 years. So, because of this, because I want to get to the elephant in the room, because I think this is really important information for everybody running. The budget surplus, the so-called budget surplus that we voted on a couple weeks ago, or in May. And it's really important. I know that there are a lot of people who are disappointed in the way some of the Democrats voted. So I wanted to clear that what we were doing and what happened. So essentially, 3 men who are not going to be reelected, who are going to be unaccountable to the voters, decided behind closed doors that they were going to spend a so-called budget surplus. And they basically just told us to sit down, shut up, and take it. And the problem was our fiscal bureau said that was going to blow a $3 billion hole in our budget, which meant it wasn't really going to help schools, it wasn't really going to put money into your pockets, and it wasn't really going to help at all. So it was a structural issue that we weren't going to be able to fix. And it's really important that everybody understands that, because we want to be fiscally responsible and make sure that we take care of Whitewater, Wisconsin, Walworth County, Wisconsin, everybody, right? We want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So just to give you guys the heads up, we're working hard for you and we have a plan.
I'm John Perryman from Williams Bay. I'm running for Assembly in the 31st District against the County Town of August. I'm a pediatrician, so I've devoted my life to taking care of children and their families. And I'm running because there are just several things that I see right now that I'm really disturbed by. I'm worried about how many people in the richest country in the history of the world, of Earth, struggle to get by with the basics. I worry how we have so many people who can't get health care when every other developed nation has health care for all their people. I worry about the Republicans who have strangled our public school system. I worry about our veterans who've been disrespected, our unions that have been weakened. I have just there's so many things that are happening from the Republican side are just so antithetical to me. So as we go on and talk about some of these issues, I am someone who will fight for you. I will fight for health care for us. I will fight for our public schools and our unions. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Rick Bailey. Live in Lake Geneva since '91. 35-year school teacher, 44-year coach, raised in the foster homes on the south side of Chicago. What got me to do this, as I was asked, I wasn't pursuing it, what got me to do this was my anger and frustration with the madness in Washington and the gridlock in Madison. I'm sick of it. We need government that works for people, not the wealthy, not the powerful. We need a government that pays attention to the needs of folks. A government that understands cost of living. A government that understands what real hardworking people need, not the powerful. I'm tired of the divisiveness, I'm tired of the hate, I'm tired of the lies, and I look for your support.
Well, as I begin speaking, you notice that I have an accent, right? It is because my first language is Spanish, my second French, and my third English. I spent my first 24 years in Spain. I was born in the northern part, in a city called San Sebastian. I grew up under the dictatorship of Franco, and I saw the transition to democracy. So I kind of know where we are going, right? After going to the university for 5 years in Spain, I earned a degree in Spanish and language and literature, and I arrived to New York in 1986. Once in the US, I earned 2 master's degrees and a PhD while I was in a student and professional visas. I became a citizen in 1997. Today, I am married, I have 2 children, and I own with my husband a meat processing company. So I'm running for Assembly District 33 to address the affordability, energy, and climate crisis. Thank you.
What's her name? Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Maria Elena Visabarros.
Maria Elena Asimaros. Visa Varos.
Muy bien.
Gracias. Visa Varos. Okay, your first quote. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Greg.
My name is Greg Miller. I'm running for District 32. I am born and raised in Genoa City. In 2021, the day before January 6th, I left for boot camp. 5 years, I served in the Air Force for 5 years. I left the Air Force this January. I was just a little bit frustrated by the state of our country, the state of our state. I thought I could no longer serve in our nation's military under this government.
Good for you.
I thought I'd just be a volunteer, knowing my age and experience. But I called our Walworth Democratic Party office, and they wanted me as a candidate. So, so I'm here today to challenge the incumbent to make a difference and to establish a Democratic trifecta in Madison.
Excuse me. Now we can go to question number 1, and again, you have 1.5 minutes. The first question is, child care availability and affordability mirror the same prices as health care in Wisconsin. What will you do to improve the availability of these essential services in our area? We'll start with John. We'll start with John.
All right. So Janet Yellen, back when she was Secretary of the Treasury, referred to child care as a market failure. And really the reason it is because the people who need it the most can afford it the least. You have young families that are starting out, they've got debt, they don't have much money, they're just getting started in their careers, and the cost of child care for the average family is 13% of their income. Just to put a kid under 5 into child care, so you just can't afford that. So you have to look at ways to help make this easier for families to get, because it's better for the families, it's better for the kid with early childhood education, and it's better for employers. Because they have a way to recruit people if you get child care, and they have a stable workforce if their employees have child care. So what can we do? There's a couple things that have been in place that are useful that probably should be expanded. The child care tax credit, which is available both at the federal and state level, are in place. That probably needs to be expanded. There is a tax credit for businesses that puts child care into their facilities, but it's mainly for capital expenditures, not for labor, not for the workers, which is really your bigger expense, so that needs to be modified. And I think another thing that we can look at would be another way of subsidizing these by having a joint public-private system. And this has worked in a couple of other states where we've had businesses working with the government to help subsidize healthcare. North Carolina and Michigan have worked on this, and it's been successful. So I think this is another route, again, because businesses do have an interest in making child care work, so I think this would be another potential revenue stream. Thank you.
As I said a moment ago, I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago in a foster home. That's important to me because how a society treats its children should be how a society is judged. We should not even be having this discussion. We should help people who are working. We're living in a world with latchkey kids. We're living in a world where kids come home and there's no parents. Why? They've got to work. They have to work. If they don't work, they can't pay their bills. They can't feed their families. It's outrageous in the richest country in the world that we do not care for our children the way we should. As far as ideas and programs, I will vote for anything and support any program that helps working families and middle-class families to be able to work and then have adequate care for their kids. Daycare centers need to be improved, need to be expanded. Workers who are hired to help these kids need to be qualified. There needs to be regulation by government that kids will be safe and well cared for. This should not even be a discussion. It appalls me that it is. Thank you.
Okay. Well, regarding healthcare, one of our candidates for governor, Keller Royce, proposed to expand the state insurance to anyone who wants to join to lower the premiums. I support this idea. And now regarding childcare, there are 3 levels: daycare centers with many children, co-op daycare with a couple of certified teachers and rotating parents as volunteers, and in-home daycare with very few children. I will promote co-op daycare and in-home daycare as they are competitive and alternative options for families. I homeschool my 2 children up to high school, and we were part of a farm camp program. So I understand the challenges that you face when your children are small. But I truly believe early childhood development is a key element to be a successful human being in the future. I will introduce legislation to subsidize these programs by designing workshops throughout the state to educate people how to open a small care facility. In Wisconsin, you can legally babysit up to 3 unrelated children under the age of 7 without a license. And if you plan to watch 4 or more, you are legally required to obtain a child care license from the Department of Children and Families. Finally, I will pass legislation to investigate daycare centers fraud. Thank you.
So the state of Wisconsin in general struggles to pay for its child care system. I was lucky when I grew up that my mother could work from home and babysit all 3 of us at the same time. But if there's no parents in the household, then child care becomes almost impossible. At the state level, we need state-backed options for child care, whether that be subsidized routes, co-op routes. The last thing we need to do is we need to preserve Tony Evers' child tax credit and expand on the employer tax credit. Thank you.
So childcare is just falling off a cliff. Governor Evers used some ARPA money to help pay childcare providers a little bit more. Childcare in Wisconsin is not babysitting. It is actually college-educated people providing childhood education to children. And right now, childhood educators are getting paid $12 an hour, which is way less than Walmart, which pays about $20 an hour. So child care centers are not able to pay. Their employees are not able to keep employees, which means they have smaller amounts of kids that they're taking care of. Even though they have larger spaces to be able to add more children to it, there are wait lists, and the parents cannot afford it. So the parents basically are paying the same amount to send their kids to 4K as they would be to send their kids to college, which is just not feasible when you are young parents trying to get things going with your family. So essentially, and we all know this, right? Children need to be with other children, learning how to play, learning how to get along with them. We need to make sure we're getting kids into these childcare situations earlier. And we also need to make sure that we are, paying attention to the fact that this is economic. This is not just making sure that we're taking the load off of parents. We're making sure that we're actually increasing economic opportunities. We have healthy kids, mentally healthy kids. They're going to be able to get good jobs someday, but also they're going to be kids who can get great educations, and their parents are going to be able to work. Mom's not going to have to stay home, etc. So it's really, really important that we actually subsidize childcare education, and the Democrats actually have a pretty big package already put together that we're ready to put forward.
Yes, okay, so question number 2. Artificial intelligence has been described as the industrial revolution of our time. It presents significant opportunities as well as significant risks to the environment and increased utility fees here in Wisconsin. What legislation would you pass to protect our residents? We'll start with Rick.
There we go. Okay, without my glasses, I don't see well. Anyway, artificial intelligence is here. Like every great invention in the history of humankind, it is here, and it's not going away. But how it is used and what it does for us is huge. It's become, I think, as existential as climate change. First and foremost, my biggest concern with alternative energy is what it's going to do to our next generation of young people. I was a school teacher. One of the things that was vital was critical thinking. Not what you know, but what you can do with what you know. We're raising children today who can push buttons and get an answer, but they have no idea how it works. If we raise a generation like that, we're in trouble. Because true democracies must have people who can think for themselves. Not just push a button. I would support any legislation that regulates AI very, very intensely. And not
I tend to believe be one that believes that Wisconsin needs to be easier to do business at. As a representative, I want to make sure we can bring in all businesses to my area. The businesses we bring in, I want are skilled, they pay highly, and they respect the people in the community. A foreign business that'll bring none of these attributes are these AI data centers. These AI data centers bring no long-term jobs, they harm the environment, and they get tax breaks. Thank you.
The problem with AI data centers in Wisconsin is it's the wild, wild west. The Republicans put in a $2 billion tax break for them. You have these tech bros with venture capitalism who are coming in. We have the water, they want it. The Democrats basically put in a AB 722, which was a pretty comprehensive bill that was going to regulate AI data centers in a number of ways, put a lot of guardrails on them so that we don't have to put that responsibility onto cities and towns, and they could have something to help them out. So it had a lot to do with public health, making sure there was solar, environmental constraints that were put on them, and making sure that they used union jobs, etc. I mean, it really was pretty comprehensive. We would have liked to do more with it if it had ever gotten to committee, because we knew it could even be more comprehensive. And right now, it's nothing. The Republicans basically looked at ours, slapped a two-pager together for them, and it really meant nothing, and it went nowhere. So we are basically flying in the wind until January, and it's really unfortunate because we actually had 6 months worth of research that was going to make sure that we had some really good guardrails in place. So it's important that we understand the economic importance of data centers. Epic is a data center, right? There are small data centers as well. We need to make sure that we're paying attention to these things and having these guardrails in place because some of them are really useful, and we just want to make sure we're doing it responsibly.
Okay, so I think there's really two questions, whether the question, one is about AI and one's about data centers, because AI itself is such a massive, difficult topic. The benefits are potentially huge, the downsides are potentially catastrophic. Even the people who make AI don't always know what's going to happen. I mean, the co-founder of Anthropic was talking about how sometimes his models do things that are disturbing. You know, so the AI part is a whole different thing, but the data centers, looking at that specifically, I think there's a couple of things that we have to do. Number one, the tax breaks that we provided, I think, need to be phased out. We don't need to give tax breaks to these companies to come in. Number two, there has to be a stoppage of non-disclosure agreements between local governments and the people who live in these communities need to know what's going on, they need to be aware. We need to have at the state level, Brian's right, and it is the Wild West, we need to have a basic set of things that talk about, we need disclosure of where you're going to get your power, where you're going to get your water. The type of power you use is going to also determine your water usage, because if you use a gas-fired power plant, it's going to probably use more water than the actual data center does. So we need that. We need to have pollution impact. So there basically has to be a suite of findings that need to be provided to a community, and then they decide. It's their decision whether to do it or not, but they need to have that basic information, and that is something that at a state level we need to provide. So that's what I would do. Thank you.
I'm going to ask each candidate to close, wrap up with a 1 minute, and we'll start with Maria Elena. Pisabanos.
It's funny because after teaching for so long, my students learn, they call me Miss B or Miss Bisabanos instead of the name that I really want to be called. Okay, closing statement. If I'm elected for Assembly District 33, I will fight for, my topics are education, healthcare, farmers, and small businesses. I will fight for funding for public schools, lowering the healthcare insurance premiums, helping farmers. We work with around 40 local farmers, so that is a very personal issue for me. They need less regulations, new ways of generating income, and research, money for research grants. Being a small food business owner, I understand that we need less regulations than the big food companies, and group healthcare plans to retain employees. Finally, as demand for power increases, we must build a strong, clean energy infrastructure, solar, wind, for homes, schools, farms, and businesses to lower the cost of living. And the state money should help us achieve this goal. Thank you for listening, and please vote on August 11th for the primary.
Just a couple things to close out. I'm running against an incumbent who thinks she's immovable. Amanda Nedwesky, the incumbent, she got her start in politics with Monster of Liberty. If you guys aren't familiar with that organization, it harasses school children, it harasses school boards, and it bans books it thinks are disagreeable. Her best accomplishment in the state assembly is doing whatever Robin Voss wants her to do. So I'm trying to go to Madison to protect our public schools and to establish a democratic trifecta. Thank you.
I am a homegrown Walworth County candidate, and Walworth County has always had my back. I make all my decisions with you in mind, and we are the scrappiest county party in Wisconsin. Take my word for it. The Democrats in the Assembly and Senate know this. They ask us what you guys think. As goes Walworth County, so goes the Wisconsin Democrats. We all know this as well. We have people coming in from Sweden and elsewhere who come in to find out how we're doing what we're doing and slowly moving the needle blue. And we're doing it every single time. We've got these great candidates up here who are showing what hard work we put into it. You are legends. It's important to also recognize that we can't quit. We need 5 more candidates in the Assembly. And we need to hold on to my seat. I barely flipped the district from red to blue, and I still need help. I still need volunteers as well. I'm going to be working hard for all of these candidates, absolutely. And I'm running against a MAGA extremist, which was handpicked by the GOP leadership and large landlords. So we want to make sure we do not allow him any chance to get into the Assembly, because he'll just keep doing what they've been doing for a while. So I'm asking you to help me knock doors and keep bringing in those volunteers. I will too. I got my UW Whitewater people who I will keep bringing in, young people who have got lots of energy. Keep modeling that fighting spirit, and also donate what you can to my campaign, please, BrienneForWisconsin.com. It's really important that I continue this great work and keep building that groundwork that we're all going to be working with. Thanks.
Again, John Perryman, running for Assembly District 31. We talked about a lot of important issues today, but the big underlying thing, like Rick alluded to before, is that we have a seriously broken political system. We have a president who is the worst type of demagogue that our founder is worried about. So what we have the opportunity to do, what our job is to say no to this guy. And we do that by first flipping the congressional district, getting rid of the congressman from crypto, Brian Style. We get the trifecta in the state government because flipping the Congress provides accountability. With our federal system, the state powers are also really critical. And it's just so important that the Trump onslaught be stopped, because we are in a very dangerous place right now. And where we have to go is we have to win the seats here and in Washington. So I thank you for being here very much, and thank you for your support.
I got into this because I've got 6 grandkids. I've got 4 grown children. What kind of a world do I want to leave them? I couldn't sit on the couch any longer and watch it. And so I jumped in. You're welcome. But I never realized what I was getting into. But the bottom line is that I love democracy. I love our constitutional institutions. I love my country, as I just said. And I can no longer sit and watch the madness in Washington, the gridlock in Madison, and that regular people are not being represented or heard. It's time to come back to what our founders intended, a country that listens, a country that cares, a country that has empathy. Thank you.
State Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez.
So, as with all the other candidates, you will get 1 minute for an introduction before we launch into a couple of questions. So, go ahead.
Hi, Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez. It is the honor of my life to be your Lieutenant Governor, but it was never part of my plan. I'm actually a nurse by background, of anything from night shifts in the emergency department all the way to running big public health programs. I was an epidemic intelligence service officer with the Centers for Disease Control, did national and international outbreak investigations. And that's why I decided to run for office in the first place, District 13 in Waukesha County, and was able to flip that district from red to blue with a 4-term Republican incumbent. And then I stepped up again when Governor Evers needed a partner for his second term. Lieutenant Governor Barnes decided to run for Senate. Won my primary statewide, and then won with Governor Evers with 3.5 percentage points, a landslide as he calls it in the state of Wisconsin. Been so lucky to serve with him, to watch his leadership. But I knew when Trump won again, I was going to run for governor so that we could.
Congratulations on the incredible quality of the candidates that you have recruited. My name is Kelda Royce, and I'm delighted to be here with you. I'm running for governor to raise wages, to lower costs, and to protect our freedoms from this dangerous authoritarian regime. We need a governor who will use every tool at her disposal to protect us from the many harms of the Trump administration and to hold them legally accountable for their crimes. I've been a lot of things. I'm an attorney by training. I'm a small business owner for 13 years, mom and stepmom of 5, and a statewide nonprofit leader. But I've also been a legislator for 10 years, serving in both the Senate and the Assembly. I know how to get things done for Wisconsin. That's why I'm proud to have earned the endorsement of WEAC, our state teachers union, and the most endorsements overall, including the endorsement of Representative Breanne Brown, great daughter of Walworth County. And I hope to earn your support as well. We're going to fully fund our public schools and expand healthcare. Thank you.
Question number 1, and we are going to give them 2 minutes to respond. The Wisconsin motto, "Forward," seems to be forgotten as we see Wisconsin sinking in national status due to programs being underfunded or dismantled, such as, but not limited to, education, research, healthcare, and infrastructure. As governor, what will you do to reverse these downward trends?
So there's a couple of statistics I'm going to give you that are shameful within Wisconsin. We are second to last in state funding for arts. We are last in state funding for public health. And it is an embarrassment to do that. We also have one of the lowest literacy rates for Black and brown children in the United States. We have a lot of work to do. We are going to need a governor who's going to focus their efforts on making sure that we have the education system that we used to have in Wisconsin. We were always known as the education state. And making sure that we fully fund our public schools is going to be a priority of mine. We have got to fix the funding formula that we have right now. It has not been touched in almost 30 years. We have very categorical funding. We don't look holistically at the child. And I'll give you an example as to why that's a problem. I was in Delavan, and they went from very low English language learners to a much higher percentage in a very short period of time. Not one extra dollar in school funding. So we're going to have to walk and chew gum at the same time. We're gonna have to make sure we invest within our public school system. We're gonna have to invest in public arts. We're gonna have to invest in public health because they have been starved with the Republican-led legislature for so long. The money is there. It's about how you prioritize it to make sure that you are doing the types of things that Wisconsinites want. And if you ask them what they want us to invest in public schools, over 70%.
Yeah.
That is not Democrats. That is Democrats, Republicans, and independents. So you need a governor who's going to be ready day one to get their agenda across the finish line. I'm really proud to have the endorsement of the most sitting legislators today, as well as the endorsement of AFSCME, which are the State Workers Union, because I know I'm going to put workers first. Thank you.
Wisconsin has a really proud and beautiful progressive history that is reflected in our motto, Forward. But for the last 15 years, we have lived in a backwards Republican hellscape. But the good news is that that is coming to an end, largely thanks to the work that groups like the Walworth County Dems have done around the state. I've been really proud to spend my adult life for the last 25 years working to elect Democrats in every corner of the state and build progressive power. Not just to talk about great ideas, but to actually turn progressive policies into law in the toughest of political environments. And that's what makes me the strongest candidate to be governor in this new era. Because not only will our governor have to stand up to the Trump regime, but we will also have the chance to put Wisconsin on the map as a leader in building what comes next, what comes after Trump. And to me, it starts with making Wisconsin the very best place to raise a family, so that every single child, no matter who you are or where you're from, can thrive. We have to fully fund our public schools, but we can also make universal early childhood education affordable. I and my colleagues like Representative Brown have bills to do just that. We also need to recommit to public higher education so that young people see a pathway. And as a small business owner myself, I want to invest in our homegrown entrepreneurs because that, not data centers and Foxconn, is how you build real, vibrant economies that work for everybody. I'll say just a bit about my healthcare plan because of all the costs that we need to lower, healthcare is at the top of the list. I'm offering something very different from what the other Democrats in this race are offering. Their plan relies on something that the Trump administration has made almost impossible for us to do, Medicaid expansion. My plan will open up the state health insurance, the very same coverage I get as a state legislator, and let anybody buy in. It is the quickest way to get us towards our ultimate goal, which is universal health care for every single person. Thank you.
Question number 2, again 2 minutes. The fight over how the state budget surplus is to be utilized has been all over this news cycle. What would be the 3 most important items you want to see passed in your first budget when elected? And how will you secure funding for those items, and how do you propose the state surplus should be utilized? It's a 3-parter.
That's a lot.
That's okay. 2 minutes, go.
Okay, 2 minutes, go. All right. So one of the things that I'm committed to is working from November until January to make sure that we've got a budget that really focuses on everyday Wisconsinites. My 3 main priorities are going to be healthcare, making sure we are lowering costs all across the state. It includes a public option on the exchange, expansion of Medicaid, and rural health stabilization funds. We know that the cuts that are coming, and they're coming, to Medicaid and Medicare are going to hit our rural spaces much harder than our urban and suburban spaces. Secondly, housing. Right now, the average age for a first-time home buyer is 40 years old. That tells me we are not making homes that young families and young people in general can afford. Having somebody who is focused on a statewide strategic plan for housing with home ownership as a priority is something that I'm going to do right away. Lastly, I want to talk about education. And this isn't just K through 12 education. This also includes early education. Right now, the federal government says for child care to be affordable, it should be no more than 7% of your income. And if anybody in this room has a child in child care right now, you are probably laughing hysterically at that number. Because with average costs in Wisconsin, a family would have to make about $185,000 a year. to afford one child in childcare, and I have 2 under the age of 5. This is absolutely critical. There was just an article that came out that about 25% of our childcare providers are looking at closing because they cannot make this meet. So this is what it is. Let's treat it like the infrastructure that it is. Let's make sure families pay no more than 7% of their income in childcare. Make Wisconsin the place where people want to move to, where people want to raise families. That is my goal as governor. Thank you.
Wisconsin doesn't actually have a surplus, because a surplus is money that you have left over after all your bills are paid. But we haven't paid our bills. In fact, we have a debt going back more than 15 years to our children because we have systematically underfunded public education for generations, and it's not okay with me. My parents moved to rural Taylor County, outside of Medford, north of Highway 29, because Wisconsin was the education state, and they knew that as a family of pretty modest means, they could give their kids a great life because Wisconsin was the education state. And now as a parent, I can see that what my kids are getting in the public schools is not the same. Every single dime of whatever surplus materializes belongs to our children to invest in their future, in public K-12, to bring that voucher scheme to a responsible end, to fix our funding formula, to invest in early childhood education. The bill Sarah is referencing is a Democratic bill to make child care universal, and to invest in public higher education. So that will be my #1 budget priority as governor. But the other thing that we have to do is invest in our local communities and shared revenue, because that's another thing that Republicans have starved. Tom Tiffany is to blame if you think your property taxes are too high, because he and Republicans, year after year, underfunded public schools, underfunded our local governments, and then put it on to you, the property taxpayer, to make up the difference. Oh, do you like having a park or a library? Guess what? Cha-ching. Until the state starts paying its fair share, we can't take the burden off property taxes. And that's why I was really proud of legislative Democrats when we stood up and said no to the irresponsible deal that was being pushed by Robin Vos to try to force future devastating cuts with a $3 billion deficit. It's a tough vote to take, but you know, leadership means doing hard things when it's the right thing to do.
We're going to give you each two minutes for a closing statement.
So we have such an enormous opportunity in 2026 to have majorities in both the Assembly and the Senate. We've got to flip 2 seats in the Senate. The maps look great. I'm bullish on it. Yeah. 5 in the Assembly. 4 of those were within a percentage point when Trump was on the ballot. We have a 5% swing in Wisconsin, and we clearly have seen more nationally and locally. We've got a trifecta that we have not seen in almost 3 decades. But here's the thing. We're gonna have 2 years. 2 years to make a demonstrable difference in people's lives. 2 years to show them what it looks like when Democrats govern. Because if we do not, they will flip that assembly right back to Republicans. So you're gonna need somebody who's ready day one to get their agenda across the finish line. I strongly believe that my experience outside of politics, my administrative experience outside of politics, as well as being lieutenant governor, well suits me to manage something as large as state government. I've already told you I've maintained my relationships within the Senate and the Assembly to get this agenda across the finish line. This is too risky a time to have somebody who is not going to win at the top of the ticket. And I'm proud that I've proven that I can win a difficult race against a Republican. And I want to remind you again that I live in Waukesha County. So, I ask for your vote and support August 11th for the primary, and then again in November. Let's get this done. Let's show them what it looks like when Democrats govern, what it looks like when we take care of everyday Wisconsinites. Thank you guys for having me.
This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity for our state. and it's one that I have been working for alongside of you for my whole adult life. We need a governor who can win the primary, who can beat Tom Tiffany, and who can usher in the transformative change that all of us need and deserve. I am the only candidate running in a field of good people, all of whom have good ideas and all of whom are going to be needed as part of this team, including everybody in this room and a bunch of people who aren't yet, and we'll bring them in. But I am the only one that can tell you I have a 2-decade-plus record of actually turning progressive ideas into law. Government isn't bullet points. It's not making a great meme on the internet. It's actually using the levers of power to bring people together and build coalitions so that you can make transformative change. And I am the one that has proven the ability to do that. In addition, I serve on the legislature's Joint Finance Committee. I'm the only one with that kind of in-depth budget experience. And that's important because that's one of the first things that the governor does is write a budget. It's also important because I know where the Republicans are hiding their money. So I'm going to take that money from the millionaires and the billionaires and the big polluters and the data centers where Republicans have been subsidizing them and invest it into the things that benefit all of us so that we can have a Wisconsin where everyone, no matter who you are or where you're from, can thrive. Here's the thing. If we all sit on the sidelines, we're likely to have Mandela Barnes as our nominee, right? In his crowded primary, he has the most name ID because we've all put our blood, sweat, and tears into helping elect him in 2022. But I am the candidate in the primary best position to be able to potentially beat him, and I have the most experience to actually be governor. It's because I have the broadest support with the most endorsements. I have the endorsement of WEAC, our state teachers union, and it's because I have a strong base not just in Madison, but in Milwaukee and in the Fox Valley as well. We need someone who can build those coalitions to win this election and to govern well. Thank you so much. I hope to earn your vote.
Thank you both very much. Now we will bring up part of the trifecta is the state executive branch. Also very important.
All right. Well, thanks for having us here tonight, or I guess tonight, everybody. I appreciate it. My name is Dylan Helmenstein, and I am running to be the next Wisconsin State Treasurer. I got my master's in public affairs and moved home to serve on the school board and village board for my community, becoming the first queer person elected on both boards in a rural community here in Wisconsin. After that, thank you. I've only got a minute, so I gotta keep going. After that, I was a financial analyst and auditor for Wisconsin Medicaid programs, and I'm a governor's appointee to the Teachers Retirement Board of Wisconsin, overseeing the public pension fund for Wisconsin's public workers and teachers. But what's important is that this office has to do more for the people of Wisconsin. It has to defend public education by overseeing the Common School Trust Fund. And it has to have a role in bringing government transparency into the 21st century here in Wisconsin and make government more understandable so that you and your neighbors know what's going on. My name's Dylan. I need your vote on August 11th.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for hanging out. It's been so great to join you all for this picnic and come back to Walworth County. My name is Eileen Newcomer, and I'm currently candidate for Secretary of State. Prior to running for Secretary of State, I spent the last 8.5 years working with the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin to defend democracy and empower voters. Right now, we're in a difficult time. Right now, we're living in a time where our democracy really needs to be defended, and it's time for people to really lean in and think more about how we can use our gifts and talents to expand the electorate and get more people involved. As I'm looking around this room, I'm not seeing a total ton of young people here. So I just want to call that out. I think if we are going to win in November, we need to bring them into the tent. And one of my fears is that if we don't acknowledge some hard truths, people will stay home rather than come home to the party.
Thank you. Your first question is, what do you see as the current problems in your office, in the office you are seeking, and how would you fix them?
So
So just a reminder, I'm a newcomer running for Secretary of State. One of the first questions that people always ask me is, what does the Secretary of State do, right? It's one of these kind of overlooked offices, and that's by design. The real answer is the Secretary of State doesn't do enough anymore because the role has been systematically stripped away throughout the Walker years. So it's not we're coming in here, oh, our democracy is crumbling because of Trump 2.0. This has been going on for a long time, and Wisconsin has been kind of the training grounds for some of the worst policies that we're seeing across our nation. So one of the things that needs to change is that we need to rebalance the executive branch. Between the Secretary of State's office, the State Treasurer's office, a lot of those responsibilities have been stripped away, and it's too loaded on the governor's role. That means that there's less voice for the people in the executive, because it's just one person you're going to versus having other ears to listen to what was going on. The other thing that needs to happen is the Secretary of State needs to play a larger role in our democracy defense. So as the keeper of the state seal, if we're looking ahead to 2028, we do not want another fake elector scheme like we had in 2020. And so whoever is the Secretary of State is going to be keeper of the state seal. They're responsible for making sure that's the will of the people that goes on that paper to Washington, D.C. One of the second things is that the state legislature has been threatening for years to eliminate the Wisconsin Elections Commission and move administrators of our elections under the Secretary of State's office. That is a partisan power grab. That is a very bad idea. We need people who are able to talk about that. And I saw I got a stop message, so I'll pass it to you, Dylan.
It's getting late, so I know we're all antsy, so I appreciate you all sticking in to hear from us. So for this office, it needs to do more, and we need to see the energy of Sarah Godlewski come back to the State Treasurer's office. She was the last person who really used this office for the people of Wisconsin. And what does that look like when I'm State Treasurer? Well, first, it looks like defending public education. I talked about the Common School Trust Fund quick. It's a $1.6 billion fund that was started at the beginning of our state and only exists to support our public schools. The money that comes from that trust fund, it goes to our schools for public libraries and keeps our property taxes as low as we can with funding that doesn't come from your pocketbook. And we need to protect that. That's done by making sure the agency in charge of it, the Board of Commissioners of Public Lands, which the State Treasurer and the Secretary of State serve on, has the experience necessary and the capacity to protect that type of investment for our schools. And then, like I said, bring government transparency into the 21st century. That looks like treasurer's guides to the system, breaking down these programs so you can understand what's going on, making a public visual dashboard of the state budget so you can see how money flows to your communities, and then working with schools to get every property tax bill to show how much of your money is going to the voucher program schools instead of to public education in our state.
The second question. Let Agnes get out her favorite volunteer. Thanks, Agnes. Okay, question number 2. The reputation of the state, as well as federal government elected officials and employees, has been eroded over many years by conservative politicians. What are your suggestions to improve and better educate the public on these important services?
So this question is a big reason of why I'm running and why I say bring government transparency into the 21st century. I've just finished a term as president of my local EMS district in my community, and on the last meeting, one of the most conservative town representatives came up and said, Dylan, I'm voting for you for state treasurer, but this school funding system is broken, and this is what we gotta fix about it, and went through his points. And I said, Tom, I agree with you, and guess what? That's what the Democrats are talking about in our state legislature. And so when people are in the room and they can understand how these systems really are broken and in our way, we can really find consensus. And that's not the only job we have when we're leading the state of Wisconsin forward. But that's why the state treasurer's office needs to play that role in making publicly available information publicly understandable. Because I've been talking with school board members across the state of Wisconsin who are getting yelled at constantly for referenda when this funding system is not their fault. And you can copy and paste those same conversations to city councils, town boards, county boards across Wisconsin. We have to make these systems more understandable, and the treasurer's office is going to be a way that we match this division and confusion and answer it from the Democratic Party with understanding and unity.
I think transparency, accountability, access are really critical things that we need right now, and we need to reinforce and kind of go back to the basics. I mentioned earlier that one of my fears is that people are going to stay home rather than come home to the Democratic Party. And part of that is because we need to have a real, authentic conversation about some of the elephants that are in the room. We need to clear that up during the primaries so we can go hard for November. And what am I talking about? I can't forget that the Biden administration sat on the Epstein files for 4 years and did nothing. We need to talk about that. We need to follow the money and see, how this funnels down into other things. It's part of why we're in Iran right now. It's why people are being asked to leave their homes to go fight and kill children. I don't understand what we're even doing there. But we need to follow the money and see how this all intersects. And we need to focus on campaign finance reform and really have these honest, tough conversations and build in more pathways for people to have accurate information, credible information, have access to be able to ask questions and navigate systems that were never designed for them. They were designed to make us confused and stay out of the way and open up this lane for these bad actors to come in. And that is not what I'm about, and I don't think that's what the people of Wisconsin are about.
For a closing statement from each of you.
Okay, so I kind of got into a little bit of doom and gloom, but I do want to share with you that when I cannot sleep at night, I do art projects, and I think about new creative ways to get the message across, to engage new people, and to bring elections, bring civics to the forefront. And I think that there's a lot more that we can all do. I'm not a doom and gloom person. I may find the happiness. I literally wear a bracelet that I made when I couldn't sleep at night that says hope as my reminder to move forward with hope and to move forward with love. We cannot afford to sit out. We cannot afford to let our friends sit out. We cannot afford to let our neighbors sit out. So please, please, please make your plan to vote. Tell your friends, get them involved in volunteering, get them involved in knocking doors, get them involved in whatever skills they have, and bring it to the table. So my sister-in-law, she started the Protest Hat Project. She's a knitter. So she made all these red hats and created a group of 7,000 people who want to do something and they have this specific skill. We all know people like that and we can bring them in, but we need to do it and we need to do the work.
So like I said at the beginning, my name is Dylan Helmenstein, and I'm running for state treasurer. And yesterday, I joined some of our friends here, our representatives at the Rock County Dairy Breakfast, sped over to Pride Fest and spoke on the dance stage. I'm comfortable across the state of Wisconsin because I grew up in so many of these places that we're losing, and we've got to bring them back into our conversation. And that's why we need to use public power for the public good. And when we are out there in this campaign for state treasurer, I'm really excited because folks of all ages see somebody who's running for an executive office, and they're excited to see all generations getting involved in Wisconsin. And so I have a plan for the state treasurer's office to really work for you. I have the energy and experience to get it done and the track record to prove it. And so I'm really hoping that we are hoping to earn your vote here right now or in the patio back there for August 11th, so we can work together and win, get a clean sweep in November, and then have 4 years of good governance in Wisconsin.